Welcome to Tech Tuesday. I am so glad that you're here today. My name is Abby Ritchie. I'm known as the Tech Guru. And when I'm not here every Tuesday, I'm working with residents at communities, teaching them the tech skills they need. Today, I've got a great guest lined up for you. I'm super excited about bringing him on. But first, let's get started. Well, welcome to Tech Tuesday, Ravi, Bala. I am so happy to have you here. And before we launch into who you are and what you do, I want to say a thank you to you because part of what you do, in addition to being an age tech evangelist, which I think is a super cool title, you're also a startup mentor. And I got to tell you, you may or may not have remembered this, but probably a couple years ago, I reached out to you. We had a meeting and you gave me some really good, solid advice. You created some introductions for me. And I just want to thank you for that. As someone who is newer in senior living, I started my company 4.5 years ago. It's so helpful to have people that you can reach out to. And I did that also with Steve Moran. He was 100% helpful. And to talk to people who have walked ahead of you. So welcome to Tech Tuesday, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it warms my heart. It's interesting, I guess. It's the sign of the times. I do talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs and a lot of entrepreneurs across the board. And I don't remember talking to you 4 years ago, but I'm glad I was able to be helpful. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than to work with folks and giving them the benefit of all the failures I've had in my life, which I think really, are the wonderful scars that help me be humble as I go forward and work with entrepreneurs. I learn a lot from them.
The wonderful scars. I've never heard anyone say that before. And before we talk about those scars, tell me, what are you involved in right now? Where have you come from? And what are you working on?
Okay. I work with startups right now in the age tech space, working on go-to-market strategies. Where does your product fit in? What are some of the ways you can understand how to get the messaging across to potential customers? And how do you reach out to customers? That's the primary activity that I'm involved with. Before that, for about a decade, I was involved in providing infrastructure technologies for senior living communities. And it's really an interesting story because about 10, 11 years ago, I got involved in this new emerging thing called RPM, remote patient monitoring.
Say that again?
Remote patient monitoring.
Okay.
RPM. And it was about use of all of these Internet of Things type of devices to help with health-related activities. And I thought it'd be a great thing to take it to the senior living communities and use that as a way to provide a better quality of life for seniors. Mm-hmm. And we went in, we pitched how using these technologies can change the way seniors live to a lot of the senior living communities. And the board loved it. The real challenge was they didn't know exactly what the infrastructure limitations in their facilities were in a lot of places. You'd ask them, you have Wi-Fi in your campus? And they're like, yep, we have Wi-Fi in my campus. And we walk in and we see it's 4 Linksys access points in their common area. And my question is, do you have Wi-Fi in your residence apartments? Yeah, they have Wi-Fi, but we don't provide that to them. They get it from Comcast. So there is no network. There is no way to have communications, unified communications across the campus. And so a lot of the vision that the board wanted to implement and bought into would never really get down to the field. You just couldn't do it. So we formed a company called Health Signals.
Yeah, I want to stop you right there because I was listening to your interview with Steve Moran a year ago on Foresight TV, and you mentioned that there were residents that were complaining about the Wi-Fi in this same way. And you know what? They're still complaining about it. So what has changed? What has been improved in the past year?
I think what's things have improved, at least I know from the time I started a decade ago to now. Probably a half of the facilities have decent coverage across the board. And so I joke that for a decade I've been a digital plumber, because that's really what you needed to have in these facilities. You had to treat Wi-Fi like an infrastructure.
Right.
At Health Signals, we used to have a Maslow's hierarchy of needs diagram, and all the way on the bottom of that was Wi-Fi. And of course, if even adults are getting there now, because certainly all the teenagers are there. You're trying to take away their Wi-Fi. It's worse than I read a survey that said college students would much rather lose the ability to have beer than to lose Wi-Fi. So it's becoming a critical necessity. So now what's happened in the last few years is more and more folks have certainly more facilities have provided Wi-Fi. And especially because now, because of COVID, Wi-Fi was the way for people to stay in touch with the rest of the world. This whole issue of senior loneliness. If you didn't have the ability to see someone, see your family and your friends, and talk to them, you just couldn't have survived it. My parents live in a community in India, in a retirement community in India.
I saw you post about that recently. And so tell us about that. Tell us about your folks.
So my dad's 92 and my mom is 86. And they live in a retirement community in India. And it's an IL community, basically, independent living community. And 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, when I went to India, I had taken an Amazon Echo Show. I bought two of those. This is the one with the video call capability. So I set one up in India, and I've got one on our kitchen table. So all my mom has to say is, Alexa, there's one here. Alexa, call Ravi, and I get a video call here. And every morning we do a 5-minute check-in.
That's awesome.
Who should I call? Ravi's phone or Alexa devices?
My apologies.
I knew that was going to happen to you. That happens to me all the time too. I just really want to applaud you for having the foresight to do that in advance to Zoom. I mean, in advance to COVID. Do you know how many times I said to myself before March, April 2020, oh my gosh, if I had only tried, if I'd only thought about this, so many more people would be in such a better position. So I'm really, really thankful that you had the foresight to do that.
Well, I mean, I've lived technology. I've had these devices since they came out in 2015, and I probably have about all of the 5 generations of these technologies at different parts of the house. And you have to live it and use it to kind of think about different ways of enabling it. One of the things we did with my parents was to make sure that I have a bunch of alarms that come up that talk about, take your water. This is your water alarm. This is your blood sugar alarm, and it just kind of shows up at different parts of the day. It's simple ways of using the technology that's commercially available to make sure that we can make up for not being there. There's a tremendous amount of guilt, right? And not being able to be there and do all of these things. And so I think we can really use technology in many ways to enable them to be independent. And they also like to be independent. I mean, like if I'm there, it'll make them feel dependent. They're not as dependent if Alexa tells them to do that.
Yeah. And in the past 5 years or so, what has been a strategy that you've implemented for voice integration?
I mean, voice is becoming a primary mode of interface in almost every technology.
Mm-hmm.
And we recognize it, right? From your Siri to your Google to your whatever.
Your car.
Your car. I mean, I actually have one of those Alexa devices in my car. And so I can basically, my music, I can talk to it, and it plays whatever I need it to play. I think you can go ahead and talk about seniors and adoption of technology. The one thing that I've always said is the least sophisticated users need the most sophisticated technology for them to go interact with it.
Say that again. That sounds very, very poignant. Say it again.
The least sophisticated users need to use the most sophisticated technology for them to get a lot out of it.
Okay. Give me an example.
This whole voice, for example. Voice is a very sophisticated technology for a user interface. Before that, we had keyboards, and then we had touch screens, and then now we have voice, and you could have gestures, right? So you essentially, the more, and that voice is now usable by my 6-year-old niece has never known life without being able to command using a voice. And I have to tell you, it's kind of interesting. We're all used to, doors opening automatically when we go to places here. I remember being in India a few years ago, and I walked into a glass door just because I thought it was going to open automatically. I just expected it to open, and it didn't. So we expect it, and my niece expects I should be able to command a voice, and things are going to happen in my house.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think the next level iteration of this thing is something that I'm really, really interested and passionate about, and it's this notion of ambient sensing technologies.
Oh, tell me about that. Ambient sensing technologies.
Yeah. So, for example, if you walk into a room, you can flip on a light switch. Or you can be a little more sophisticated, and you can talk to your Google device or other device and say, hey, turn that light switch on. Or you have a motion sensor where you walk into a room, it turns it on automatically. Right? And so that's an ambient sensing device that kind of turns it on automatically. Now you can have a little bit more of a sophisticated iteration where you walk into a room, and if it's daylight, it doesn't turn it on, whereas if it's nighttime, it turns it on. So it's got a next level of intelligence. The ultimate is you walk into a room, it not only turns on the light, but it turns on the music that you like at that time of the day. So you have the ability to have sensors. For example, we have motion sensors all over our home because of security systems. And those motion sensors measure how much you walk, how often you move, where you move. You now have the capability to have systems that will tell you who is the person in the house that's moving. And they use radar technologies. There's a company called Vyar, Wallabot, and they have a device called a Wallabot. And Vyar is used by a lot of other companies to create activity monitoring, motion sensing, and fall detection capabilities.
I love that aspect. The fall detection, I think, is huge. And so this is what passive monitoring is about, right?
It's passive. You don't need to do anything. The system does it on its own.
Right.
Right. And there are other technologies that have evolved that, for example, can use your voice. Today, you have companies, like Vocalis and Sonde Health and companies like that can take a look at the timbre of your voice and the tone of your voice and make diagnostics. For COVID in particular, the COVID cough, you can actually detect that using even your iPhone.
I get it.
And the other the technology that I thought was really cool to me, we're having a conversation right now, and there is a company in Israel called Bina, and there's another one in Canada called Anura, and I can use this video of you to tell you what your blood oxygen level is. I can tell you what your heart rate is.
Wow.
I can tell you what your stress level is. And I'm getting close to telling you what your blood pressure is. And
amazing.
Eventually, and I haven't seen the demo of this, but they're telling me that they can do blood glucose eventually.
All from watching a video?
Yeah, because your skin has micro changes to it as you breathe. And this AI basically will be able to go ahead and make the slight determination of the small changes.
This, I think, would be amazing for telehealth, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it has implications across the board. There's a company called CareOS that embedded this Bina technology into a mirror. So imagine waking up in the morning, you walk up to the mirror, wash your face, and this thing looks at it. It's automatically recorded all these vitals about you, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and then the next step. Okay, what do? You wake up and then you go to the bathroom. You sit on the toilet, and there are companies there. You love this expression. It's called a butt. This company called Toy Labs says that they have something called a butt print, and the reason why they have it is because this company's got a toilet unit which uses lidar type technology to take a look at your stool and your urine, the urine color, the volume, and the formation of the stool, and it can make early diagnosis of changes to your health.
Okay, I had no idea we were going to be talking about poop, but I'm always glad to learn about new things. I'm a mom. These things just come up all the time anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I want to know, how do you find out about these things? Where do you go to tap into these developments? I'm so curious.
I guess over the decade, you cultivate a stream of information from a lot of startup accelerators. I mean, Moby Health News is a great place to go. You have folks, incredible folks like Karen Etkin out of Israel,
Mm-hmm.
and Laurie Orlov, the dean
Mm-hmm.
of H-Tech. They talk about a lot of these technologies, and then you also run into them as you listen to pitch competitions.
Yeah.
Like I participate in a lot of pitch competitions where you sit in as an attendee, sometimes as a judge or a mentor, and you run into a lot of these really amazing technologies. Also, my wife's a cardiologist, and so every so often she's around across something and throw that across the transom. She actually brought something to my attention. This company called Kasana, and they originally started off as Heart Health Intelligence. And
say it again, please.
Heart Health Intelligence.
Okay.
And now they're called Kasana, and they again, unfortunately, they're also they make a for your toilet, they essentially make a little seat, and the seat has all kinds of sensors.
Wait, are we talking about poop again? No. Okay, go ahead.
This is when you just sit down.
Okay.
When you just sit down, it measures your temperature, your weight,
Mm-hmm.
it can measure your pulse. Right, because basically the idea is to incorporate technology into your daily activities of life, so you don't have to do anything extra.
Right.
You don't even have to wear that watch. You don't have to charge it and forget about it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I find. My wife has an iWatch, and she doesn't wear it all the time. Sometimes she just puts on the charger and forgets and runs off to work. And so if you were relying on that to be providing you information, a lot of the information is not going to be available. So what we really want to do is embed technologies that are ambient, like just in the environment at your home. This is the smart home. Right?
I think that's a great idea. They say that anytime you're trying to incorporate a new good habit into your routine, you just put it alongside something you're already doing so that it's easier to integrate it, right? And so this type of technology is embedded in things that you're already doing. So it's not like you have to do anything extra.
Right. Behavior change is the most difficult thing to do, right? And especially if you're starting the behavior change at 60, 65, 70 in that time frame, it's a difficult thing to embed. And typically what happens is like exercise. You start exercising, and then you suppose if you have a cold or a flu, you give it up for 4 days, and then you're done.
Mm-hmm.
The habit actually is difficult to get back into the
Mm-hmm.
process. So, and the same thing, I used to have, I was evaluating the Amazon Halo watch. And I liked the idea because it was supposed to do things like monitor my sleep and things like that. But I didn't wear it for 2 days, and the habit went away. And it wasn't like it wasn't giving me feedback in my regular stream of activities to tell me that I should be doing something. So I think between these reminder devices that tell you to do something, somewhat interrupt you gently as you need it,
Right.
and passively observe what you're doing, somewhat in many ways kind of mimic a human companion, right? And Because if you have a partner, they'll look at you and say, "You're not looking good today.
Yeah.
You're walking a little slow."
Yeah.
And so this thing will do it for me if I don't have a partner doing it.
Are you currently wearing an Apple Watch?
I am not wearing any watches.
You're watch free?
I am watch free, and it's on purpose. I mean, you basically there are times you go through this thing, and I've gone through over the last 2 years to minimize interruptions, and I take away things that'll interrupt what I'm doing.
I wanted to talk earlier about something that you mentioned, and these are the scars, the failures. So I think it's so helpful for startups, for entrepreneurs to hear about these, because people only see the glamour, they only see the success, they only see the finished product. So tell me, both in your own personal experience with your career, as well as companies that you've worked with, what have been some epic failures that actually turned out to be, change the trajectory for you?
I'll tell you about this company that I had started with a partner, called Knowledge Flow, and we had this incredible technology. Imagine this in 19. This is probably we started off prior to the days of the real internet. 1995 was when Netscape came out. We started this company in 1995.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And we were using bulletin board technologies to create business exchanges, and we actually did the AT&T Business Exchange for them, and did some really incredible projects. And there was a couple of years down, we were doing fairly well, but we wanted to do something different in terms of creating a product. And we came up with a technology, and that was the only patent application I've ever had my name on. And it was a technology where wherever you are on the internet, because of this little widget that is on your PC, it will give you recommendations based on your personal preferences.
Okay.
It was before the days of the cookie exchange and all of that stuff. If you were to go shop for shoes, it will basically say, "Hey, I know Abby, and she likes these kinds of shoes, so she's looking at this I don't know, Nordstrom's, and I can tell you, hey, Macy's has this thing on sale for you. This is if you're interested, look at this coupon." And then
kind of like Google Lens.
Kind of like that, yes.
But more.
This was in 1999. We started it. 2001. We essentially came up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And on 9/11, I was actually flying to San Francisco to present this to Visa, and it was a phenomenal product. The mistake there really was falling in love with the technology. I mean, the technology was phenomenal. The key people in the boardrooms always loved it. The question is, how do you monetize it and take it forward? There was nobody that was crying for it in terms of a product need.
Yeah.
So part of that was to make you really humble, and you certainly as a first-time entrepreneur, you get really arrogant about your technology, and they don't understand. I have this vision, and they don't understand. But really, they don't have the need. So when I now talk to entrepreneurs, I always tell them, look, it's really important for us to go understand, A, if there's a problem, B, if they recognize the problem, and C, take a look at how they're solving the problem today. Yeah, are they using Band-Aids to solve the problem? And is the Band-Aid really a problem for them? And if it isn't, we're going to continue using the Band-Aid no matter how good your solution is.
Like the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi situation has been Band-Aid, right?
Yes, it's been Band-Aid. And until this COVID situation happened, where everybody said, "I can't talk. My iPad doesn't work, and it doesn't stream movies." It used to be, why would a senior want to stream movies on an iPad? Right? It's on a television, right? Now it's a different story. Now the experience envelope for communications in a senior living community is, I'm going to sit in the back bedroom, in the farthest window on my favorite couch, and I want to stream Netflix. And if I can't do that, you're not meeting my needs.
And that happens actually all the time, because I know I'm working with people one-on-one in their homes and they can't go on their patio and stream the news at the same time. Happens.
Yep. Luckily, that's one of the first things I did here in this house, is to make sure that I could go to the patio and actually stream, video. And I think it's really, and it changes the experience. The Echo Show that I mentioned to you, I actually was able to get a battery pack, so you don't need to plug it into the wall. See, all of these Echo devices, you can actually get battery packs to plug into. So I'm able to take that into the patio and have a conversation with my parents while I'm sitting there. And then they want to see the garden because they remember they haven't seen it in a while. So I'll turn it around. And when we do Thanksgiving dinners and things like that, they're at the table, at one end of the table, while with the rest of the family here having dinner with them.
That's wonderful. So that technology back in the late 90s flopped, right? And I lived in San Francisco during that time also until 2010. But so I was right there with you. Many flops, many .com booms and busts at that time. And what else? Besides being humble and besides showing that there's got to be a need, right? And is the marketplace meeting it? Is there anything else you want to share with us?
I mean, the team is always critical, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make sure that the people that you have around you, first of all, you like them, and two, more importantly, you respect them. And they need to understand that you are true to a mission of making their lives better.
Yeah.
Not the mission of anything else, but true to the mission of making their lives better. And this is something it takes a long time to learn, but that's the most important lesson that I can bring to the table.
I wanted to bring something up also in regards to age tech and the and senior living. What kind of advances are you seeing that are going to make a big impact? Whether it's helping with occupancy or supporting staff?
I'm not an occupancy expert, but I'll tell you one thing in terms of the staffing equation from a technology perspective. If you take a look at your workforce in a senior living community and just monitor how many times they go from point A to point B and back, it'd be really an interesting thing to map. You give them one of those watches and just map that thing, because there's a lot of star movements. But you got to come back to now they've gotten a little bit better. They have radios that you can essentially use. Some communities don't like the radios to be used in hallways because some of the residents don't like that. But if you can streamline that whole process of a resident making a request to the request being passed on to the nearest capable person, right? And that requires intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. In a hospital environment or a SNF, for example, if you have a resident or a patient who's 300 pounds and they're on the bed, they need to be moved or they need to be taken to the restroom. If you go ahead and push the alarm and a 90-pound orderly shows up, you don't have the robotic aids to go make that move happen. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make sense to send that. That is no longer the right resource. Now you got 2 or 3 times the effort needed. If you are able to go ahead and send the right resource to the right party, then that makes all the difference in the world in terms of efficiency, reduces frustration. Also, not every request is high priority, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If I have instead of pushing a button and you don't know if I'm gonna get up and go to the toilet, go to the I need my pillows fluffed, or just need a glass of water, right? Those requests can be treated with different levels of priority. And you can essentially route people to the highest priority requests, because if you're going to get out of your bed, it's a fall risk. I need somebody there right off the bat. I need to make sure that that somebody can support the weight that you're going to put on them. So just that ability to efficiently route the people to the jobs that they need to perform will make a fundamental difference.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, I see this happening all the time when I'm visiting clients at different communities, and I think that this would definitely save on the workforce. Not only that, but just on the priority level of things. So, well, gosh, you have talked about the bathroom many times. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Well,
And
look, falls happen in bathrooms more than any other place.
you're
It's a place.
absolutely right. And I gotta start thinking about this more and more. I've learned so much just from listening to you and really opened my mind. I hope that anyone else who's listening has just been, blown away by what Ravi's involved in. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about right now?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've recently been involved in a very interesting effort. It's called the Digital Health Assessment Framework,
Okay.
and there are 350,000 digital health apps in the app stores,
Okay.
and 90,000 new apps come in every year, and 90,000 probably fall off the map every year. So my wife's a cardiologist, as I mentioned before, and I asked her, what is the one thing you would like to recommend to your patients from a digital technology perspective? And she said, I want to recommend a nutrition app to my patients. But how do I do that without getting in trouble? How do I know their data isn't going to get stolen? How do I know that the application works? And there is no good housekeeping seal of approval, no consumer reports rating for these apps. And there is no standards to judge them by. And that is the mission of the Digital Health Assessment Framework group. And right now we're still in the steering group stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty excited because it's a necessary thing for us to be involved in. The announcement for that got made at the American Telemedicine Association conference in Boston at the beginning of I forget April. Yeah, in the beginning of April. And I'm looking forward to it. I think we're looking at other the AARP's expressed interest, and we're looking at a lot of other organizations being involved in it.
I think it's so necessary. Let me know how things develop, because in my opinion, nutrition is king to survival. It is king to your longevity, to healing yourself without medication. So I would love to know more about this.
Yes, I'll keep you posted, because I think over the next 3 to 6 months we'll have a lot more to say about it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Tech Tuesday. I have loved hearing from you and receiving your input. And I've got some research to do here, which I love doing. And thank you, and keep up the good work. And thank you for mentoring so many and for sharing everything that you're involved in.
And thank you for what you do. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
You are welcome. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week.